Everyone, let's give a very loud and proud Louisville welcome to Adrian Paul!
I'll take this one. Hello. How are we all? No, I'll take my glasses off. Forgot about that. Oh, it's nice here in Louisville, and I see some people I've seen many times before. Obviously, a lot of you know the Highlander series that I did, and thank you. And we got a little beeps there. Thank you. It was one of the largest roles I did in my career. I've done a lot of other things, and obviously John mentioned just a second ago that I currently have and have had for the past 12, 13 years, something that I do constantly, which is the Peace Fund, which is something that I believe is important, and a lot of other celebrities do as well. Those of you that have picked up all our social media sites and all our little pages that they've given you, you'll know we also have a radio show every week called Peace Fund Radio, where we bring on other celebrities and talk about shows they're doing, shows I'm doing, mainly about charity stuff, what's important, etc. So that's what I'm doing currently, and I'm directing and producing at the moment. I have several films that we're trying to put into production, and I've got one film coming out called Black Rose that I play an LAPD detective. That's interesting. But you know, Highlander was a staple diet for me and for obviously a lot of you for many years, and it's still going. It's immortal, I think. It's, you know, gosh, I don't know why they keep running it, but they do, and I'll be talking to them about the residual checks at some point. It's only been 22 years. There's that couple in here yesterday, because I was speaking to somebody this morning. I said, you know, there was a couple that came up to me and they said, oh, you know, Highlander was our date night. We used to, you know, we had, you know, it was like, I said, well, we had a date, we watched Highlander. And I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, this is our son. I said, how old are you? He goes, 19. I went, yeah, that's about right. You went red, I think, a little bit. I don't know if you're in here at the moment. I don't think you are. I probably only came for one day, but, you know. Anyway, I'll answer questions because I'm sure you've got some of them to give me before I rip this thing off the floor. So if you want to, either shout it out, or is there a mic? No, it's probably just, oh yeah, up there. So if you want to ask me something, I'll try and answer it as nicely as I can.
Mr. Paul, one of the favorite things that I enjoyed about Highlander was the authenticity you brought to the combat scene due to your martial arts training and experience. So I was just curious what your training consisted of over the years.
I've done a variety of things. I mean, I started off punching people as a kid. That was my training, getting black eyes and that, and I realized, you know, I had to do something else to sort of stop the natural Italian in me coming out. And so before I started doing the series, I started doing, you know, Taekwondo and just regular hitting, boxing, that type of stuff. And then when I got the series, and I started doing a little bit of weapons work prior to that, but when I got the series, I was lucky to work with, and that's one of the great things you get as working on things like this. You get great people that they put you with. And I had, you know, Bob Anderson, who passed away recently, was one of the most prolific sword masters in the industry. He did Princess Bride. He was the guy behind the mask on Star Wars, on Darth Vader's mask. He was doing all that stuff. He was 30 years the Olympic fencing champion for the British fencing team. So I learned a lot about, you know, basic movements in sword and epee. But then after that, I started studying with my Sifu in Hung Gar Kung Fu, which was, it's a hard style Kung Fu, and I learned a lot in doing that. And then on the show, as I went through the show, there was Rick Faraci who came on, who was a world champion icebreaker, stuntman, did a lot of karate. I looked at that, I looked at the Korean style of fighting. So a lot of the people that came in, I'd look at some of the moves and I'd adopt them. And because in reality, it's like anything. When you use anything, when you're an actor, when you're, you know, a martial artist, my Sifu would say to me, so what does a painter use? He doesn't use one colour, he uses many colours, and it's the same thing. A martial artist is exactly the same. You take what you can and you utilise it for what you make sense of it.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Okay, so that's it. Yes, sir.
Before the series started, a lot of us were already watching the movies, but what do you think as far as what had already been laid down? What do you think in terms of hardest thing?
Just cut out the card.
Well, the funny people always ask me, first of all, did you see The Highlander before you actually did the series? And I said, yes, I did. I mean, it was one of my favourite movies. And I remember being actually in a casting office and looking up on the wall and going, I'm going to do something with that. It was Highlander 2, that shall not be mentioned. It was on the walls, and I said, I knew I was going to do something with that. And when I went into to start doing the series, it was, what was your question? Oh, what did I bring? Yeah, because I was going to get into that. So originally, when they started doing the series, I was Connor McLeod. And I'd already done once before in War of the Worlds, replaced another character. And that's tough because people always judge you for that character. And I went, oh no, how do I replace Connor McLeod? And I kept saying to them, luckily, Christophe Lambert was available for the first episode. So they made me, they said, we've got to find another name for you. So we went through a lot of names, Ian, and I can't remember some of the others, but then Duncan came up, Duncan seems to be. And to me, that was really good because then I could shape who he was. What they gave me was basically something that we built on. His character was it became the beginning of it. I said, okay, he's a guy that doesn't really want to fight. He's a little bit like Connor, he's a little bit different. But they were finding out who he was loosely based on who Connor McLeod was, just the values. And as we grew, we created his values and who he was as we grew, and that's what we did. So a lot of the time they do that in series, they take a character and they'll look at the character, they'll write it, but then they'll go, okay, what can this actor do? What can this actor bring? What does he do? And so they shape it a little bit to both things, because you've got to watch this guy for like 5 or 6 years, hopefully. So you kind of meld the two together. Yes, madam?
I have a question about how you feel about the potential reboot of the Highlander franchise.
They are remaking the Highlander first movie. They have had a couple of issues. One director quit on them. They now, from what I understand, have Ryan Reynolds pulled away from the project because it's taken them too long to put it together. It's not surprising. It's going to be a $70–80 million picture. They're remaking the very first one, which they did with Batman, which worked. I don't know until I see the script, until I see the film, to make a real valid comment on that, because I have my idea of what Highlander is, I'm sure you do, and they, from what I understand, have changed it a little bit. So until I see what it is, I can't really make a valid comment as to what I feel. And I never say something, oh, it's going to be great, it's going to be terrible, it's going to be this, because until I see it, then I can make my own opinion, and it'll be my own opinion only, as to what I think that product is. Is that fair? Yes, sir.
Who were some of your favorite guest stars work with, like Roger Daltrey?
You just mentioned one of them.
Okay. I was going to say that.
No, Roger's like a very normal guy. I mean, he's just like he's a very wealthy man. He travels the world. He plays in front of 60,000 people, and he's just a guy. But he's so funny, and it's great to actually work with somebody like that. I mean, obviously, I was lucky to work with some really good cast members: Elizabeth Grayson, Peter Wingfield. They're really cool, nice people, and they stay there. Stan Kirsch, who's like my brother, Alexander Vandernoot, who actually a very funny story about her. Very first year, she says, I don't know, it's a series, I want to do film, I don't think I can do it. So she goes off and she mentioned that she wanted to leave the series at the end of the first season. So 4 episodes in, bang, she's dead, And she goes back to Paris the next year, and all of a sudden everybody's recognizing her from everything. They only recognize her from Highlands. Recognize her. And she, a couple of years later, she's like, yeah, and she says, I don't understand it, I should have stayed. I was like, yeah. So there's some really nice, good people I work with. I can literally count on one hand people I didn't get on with out of 117 episodes. And there's a lot of people I work with. So, you know, I was very fortunate. So those were some of the, you know, there's Roland Gift who came on, and Joan Jett came on the show, and, you know, I mean, Joan loves her food separate. She's a I don't know if she's a vegan, but she doesn't like food touching. So the peas come on one plate, the Brussels sprouts come on another, this comes on another, this comes on another. So the waiter coming in the door, we were rehearsing, had this pile of plates like this. So yeah, so I was fortunate. Those were some very good people I worked with. I'm sure there were others, just off the top of my head right now. But I was fortunate in that respect. Yes, sir. Well, you know, actually, the toughest one, I think, and it wasn't even the series, it was actually Highlander the Source. And that was actually when Jim Burns died. It was so easy to be emotional in that scene, because I'd known Jim for so long. I was actually the one that, when Jim Burns, who played Joe Dawson in the series, at the end of season 1, we would go out at night, and a lot of people told us about Jim Burns, he's a jazz player, he's a brilliant blues musician. And we went to see him, and I said, you've got to get him in the show. He's an actor, so get him in the show. Like, oh, he can't do that. What are we going to do, blues? And I brought the producer in, and he looked at it, and then Bill Panzer, and I don't know what we're going to do. 3 months later, 4 months later, they've written in this character as Joe's Bar, as one of the head of the watches, and Joe's playing occasionally. And some of his music's in the Highlander, and it's brilliant. So, you know, it was great. That's another great person I work with, actually. He's, you know. So, did I answer your question? Because I've wandered off on this comment. Over here. No shoot. Over here. Did I answer it? Okay. Yes. I probably have. They could be on. You know, Jim Burns used to say, people used to ask me, where does a sword come from? And I go, I mean, what do I answer, Jim? And he goes, well, tell them it's the same place the music does. It's in post-production. So it's the same thing. It's like, you know, I don't think they need to. You know, because even in the first, to me, I still think, I mean, there's certain places Highlander the series touched on it, some places in some of the films they touched it, but I don't think that it was totally brought to light as to what that was. Because in the first film, I always remember there's a couple of images always stick with you when you see a film. There's always something that you know, remember. And to me, the one that remembers me is when Colin McLeod is running and on the beach in the very first one, and there's this stag, and you can feel the heart of the stag. And to me, that was such a it was such a special moment, because you're talking about a whole nother level of it's not just guns and weapons. This is a spiritual thing you're talking about. And I think that's something that Highlander had in some places, but I don't think they explained it all as to why that was. And I think they were trying to in Highlander the Source, and I just don't think it kind of got to where it was supposed to be. My race of the Carrera Panamericana. That was a very interesting event, because I flew down from Vancouver, and I had my dog with me, and I was carrying my dog on, so I missed the flight to get to Los Angeles, which missed my connection to get down to Mexico City to catch the flight somewhere else. So they flew me somewhere else. I got to Mexico City late, and they said, don't worry, we can get you, we got another airport to take you on another plane. I'm thinking, please don't be one of those little planes, because it was thunder and lightning at the time. And I'm like, please don't let me be one of those little planes that, you know, I'd never been on, I didn't really like it. So they take me to this airport, this special airport, you know, there are all these cargo places, jets. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. And I look on the tarmac, this big jet, I'm like, yeah, that's cool, on that one, yeah. So they go to the tarmac and they turn left. And there, sure enough, is a little plane sitting there.